everyone, and welcome to a new season of Vitamins, proudly presented by St.Lukes. My name's Caitlin Davies, and from the JackJumpers media team, and it's my absolute pleasure to be taking the reins this season. We, of course, are excited to be back for another year. Just as the JackJumpers tip off NBL 26, we are tipping off another season of Vitamins as we help St.Lukes make Tasmania the healthiest island on the planet. Of course, we're recapping everything from the JackJumpers, both on and off the court, and get to know a little bit more about some of the people that make the JackJumpers tick and help defend the island. St.Lukes are on a mission to make Tasmania the healthiest island on the planet. To find out more, head to stlukes.com.au. Well, if you are tuning in for the first time, a very warm welcome. A quick recap of Vitamins. So Vitamins for us are short individual sessions that are tailored to what each player might need on that particular day. Whether it be video or a court session, shooting or whatever it might be, our wonderful coaching team decide what the vitamin session looks like for each player, and something we can probably take into our own lives, both off the court as well, of assessing what we might be deficient in and what we might need to work on. So let's get to today's guest. This season, we have started right at the very top of the JackJumpers. There's really no need for an introduction, as this woman has become an absolute powerhouse in Tasmania, a powerhouse in Australian sport. But indulge me. Christine Finnegan joined the club from its inception into the National Basketball League in 2020 and has played a pivotal role in the club's ongoing success both on and off the court. Christine has over 25 years' experience in professional sport, commencing her career at Tennis Australia and progressing through the ranks of 3 football codes, including rugby union, NRL and AFL, as well as at a time at the Commonwealth Games. Christine is a people-driven leader with expertise in brand and commercial operations and is currently the CEO of the Tasmania JackJumpers and the Tasmanian WNBL team. Christine Finnegan, welcome to Vitamins.
Welcome. Thank you for having me, Caitlin.
Finny, it is remiss of us not to have had you on season 1. We went through quite a number of the playing group, but this season we thought we'd start with a bang and have you on. And it is a very special day in the club's history. Today is, in fact, the club's 5th birthday, 5 years after the JackJumpers brand, the beloved mascot Jack the Jumper, and the brand story was unveiled 5 years ago, October 1, 2020. Tell us some of your reflections and how the club's celebrating.
Well, thank you very much. And look, to be honest, I enjoy being behind the scenes. So I'm very happy that I wasn't in the first season, but I'm really happy to kick off the second season, of course, presented by our good friends at St. Luke's. But of course, today we do celebrate our 5th birthday, and it's been a little bit of a whirlwind, I've got to say. Sometimes it feels more than 5 years, but a lot of the time it just feels like we started just yesterday. And as you just said, on October the 1st, 2020, we announced the team name, we announced our mascot, and it was all go from there. And we took the court the following November. So really not much time to get it all up and going. And of course, we've all seen the story unfold over the last 5 years. And I'm sure that anybody that's been involved, not just myself, is really proud of what's been achieved.
Been a long journey. Clint Steindl actually said yesterday's press conference that it's a bit like a kid, and I can definitely relate that the days are long, but the months and years go quickly. Tell us some of your highlights from throughout the 5 years, and when you think back to 5 years ago, some of your reflections of what it's become over that journey.
So there's a number of reflections. I'd say that the greatest highlight is me finding my happy place here in Tasmania. I created a home here. I moved here to start the job. I moved here in COVID and quickly found my place here, and I've met some wonderful people, both business people. I've met some wonderful people through our membership group, but I've also made some incredible friends along the way. So I've definitely found a wonderful home here in Tassie, and I've really, really enjoyed living here, and I can't remember the question.
Some of your reflections from across the 5 years, some of the highlights and what you're most proud of.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's so many highlights to the first 5 years, but I'd have to say that very first game that we played was a particular highlight for me. I think Sam McDaniel scoring the first points of our game. We won in double overtime against the Bullets, and I just remember seeing the excitement on the faces of everybody in the audience. I don't think anyone knew what to expect from a JackJumpers game, what it would look like. A lot of people said they'd never been to a basketball game before, but how quickly they grew to love it and latch onto it. And it all started right there. And I remember the feeling after the game, and I must say I actually think I shed a few tears of pure joy, just that not only had we won, but we'd actually got this team on the court in such a short space of time.
I'm sure we'll unpack more across the journey, of course, your personal story in just a moment. But let's touch on the season that started. 3 games down, 2 wins on the road. Pretty promising time few challenges as well. How have you seen to the start to the season?
Yeah, look, definitely had a few challenges. We had a few challenges before the season even started, of course, with Sean McDonald, and then, of course, we have DJ already gone down as well. But the highlights are that we've won 2 games in a row on the road. We've got a very big fixture on the road before we actually play our next game at My State Bank Arena. So any wins we can take on the road, I think, will be a big bonus for the club. So very, very buoyed about where we're sitting right now. I've got to say, and you'll know this, KB, you've been around a long time at this club, that there's always a feeling that you can latch on to when you've been there a while. And the feeling in our club right now reminds me of the feeling we had a couple of years ago, where everybody's just pushing in the same direction. And I think, the playing group we've got really understand what it means to defend the island and represent the JackJumpers. And I feel that that's going to culminate in some really good performances on court.
A lot of hope around that if you've got the same feeling as 2 years ago, and I'm sure a lot of JackJumpers fans will latch onto that as well. People often say, what do you do in the off-season? And this is probably be as big a off-season, as longer off-season, but as big a one as ever, with the announcement of WNBL licence about a month ago. And we're in the process of getting a brand underway. Give us a bit of an update, or the fans an update, on what WNBL Tasmania looks like. Look,
very, very exciting. When you talk about the off-season, very quiet for me. We just sold the club. We've got a high-performance centre under construction, and, of course, we announced the WNBL. So that was the culmination of 12 months of incredibly hard work across those 3 pillars, which have been my key responsibilities in terms of leadership. The WNBL, I've got to say, is a particular highlight of mine. Obviously, I've been really pleased to be part of the JackJumpers journey, the men's journey, and how we've represented Tasmania on the national and international stage. But it doesn't seem right that we only represent one gender, and so the fact that we're now representing women as well, and we will do so from October 2026, is uber exciting to me. So that announcement was a great one. As you know, in a few weeks' time, we'll announce the name that goes with that team. And I think once you name that team, you watch it's going to be all systems go, and we'll be sitting here about this time next year talking about it's just around the corner, ready to go.
At that time, this time next year, we'll also be in a lovely high-performance centre, and it's certainly taking shape down at Kingston. 2 teams under one roof, as well as the administration. Well, you've been in different sporting environments where you're trying to make the pieces connect. How much value will that high-performance centre bring to the club?
It's something Scott Roth and I talk about all the time. We've been really happy with the way we've been able to gel a club, considering we've been operating in 2 different locations for 5 years now, and it is very hard to do that. I think there's something about immersing everybody in one environment that allows everybody to really appreciate the role that each one plays in making the club successful, and that happens when you're under one roof. So obviously our men's team and the front office will look at culminating as soon as we can, potentially June or July next year. And then, of course, we bring in our women's team as well, and having great chats with Scott Roth about what that looks like, and he couldn't be more excited. And I've got to say, the positivity from the existing program in terms of bringing a women's program in is making me feel really good, in terms of they know what's coming and they're excited about it.
Let's get to know Christine Finnegan a little bit more beneath the surface, if you like, with a segment we like to call the Starting Five. And you put your hand up many a time for, well, now the WNBL Starting Five. Well, I reckon you'd be a point guard, running point, maybe. Anyway, let's start with 5 questions. Pretty simple concept: who, what, when, why, where. Fundamentals of journalism, if I go back and put that hat on. Let's start with what. What are your memories of your childhood, and how did you originally get into sport as a career?
My memories of childhood are pretty wonderful. I have 2 older sisters and a younger brother, and I grew up in a really sporty family. We just all loved sport. We'd get home from school and we'd jump on our bikes and ride over to the local tennis club, where we'd practice for hours in the afternoon. And of course, that culminated in me forging a junior tennis career, and I played all around Australia. I represented the ACT. I've spent a couple of years in Queensland, represented Queensland, and tennis became such an integral part of not only my life but my family's life. And I noticed in that period of all the wonderful people we met, both families and friends, and a lot of those friends exist for me to that day. And I remember when I turned about 17 reflecting on the fact that I didn't really think I had the talent to make it, but I never wanted to depart tennis entirely. And I looked at all the tournaments and the administrators that were running them, and I thought, now that's the job I want to do. And so very quickly decided that working in sports administration was where I would like to be, and that's a journey and a path I followed.
Tell us about your career. Next is where has your career taken you? Spanned more than 25 years, although you don't look a day over 25. Where is the career taken you? Tell us a bit about the journey.
Well, I guess I made a move from Canberra to Melbourne to pursue a career in sport, and I couldn't believe, having just arrived there, that the first job that I saw that jumped out at me was that if you love sport and you want an opportunity to work for one of the best sports bodies in Australia, put your hand up here. And it was actually a job at Tennis Australia, and it felt like 27 interviews later I actually secured the job. So that began my career in what has been a really, really happy career for me. I obviously spent 6 years there. I moved to Sydney and worked for John Newcombe, who had an agency. Then moved back to Canberra, where I worked for the Brumbies in rugby union, back to Melbourne, and then pursued all sorts of opportunities, both at the Melbourne Storm, Melbourne Rebels, and then at the AFL, with a short stint at the AFL Players Association. So rounding out my career, making sure that I worked for both the rights holder, working in agency, really, really made me, and then of course working for the players at the Players Association, really, I guess, filled the toolkit in terms of what I needed to know in terms of administration.
So when did you then arrive at the JackJumpers, and how did that come about?
Yeah, well, I was sitting in heavy lockdown in Melbourne. I think it was the second lockdown, and I was flicking through LinkedIn, and I think that's all I did all day, every day, was flick through.
I think you still do that.
Yeah,
see what everyone's
feedback's
doing.
A gift. And, yeah, that's correct. And I love to keep up to date, obviously, with what's going on. And I was flicking through LinkedIn, and they advertised a role here for the CEO of Tasmania's newest basketball team, and there was something about me that just, intuitively went, this is going to be amazing, to actually bring a professional sporting team to Tasmania and to actually be part of that, knowing how parochial they would be and how much they long to have something to cheer for and been overlooked. And so I thought, I'm just going to throw my hat into that ring, and ultimately, of course, Simon Brookhouse got the job. But having been through what was another long interview process, Larry Kesselman said to me at the end, hey, I know you missed out, you're probably a little bit disappointed, but I do need a chief commercial officer. How about you go down and help us start that way? And that being, I guess, in my wheelhouse, and having gone through the process, having set my head around the fact that I really wanted to be here, it was a no-brainer for me. And so I left Melbourne. I went into 2 weeks of hotel quarantine at the Gateway Hotel in Devonport, and I think if anything shows a commitment to wanting to be here, it's going through hotel quarantine. Peter Gutwin and I still have great conversations about the fact he locked me up on my way in, but I've really had a wonderful time, and it's been great ever since.
Well, mentioning Larry and some of those key people who came into your life through that journey. Next question is, who have been some of the most influential people in both your life and your career in sport?
Look, I think, in the immediate past, it's really hard to go past Larry. He obviously gave me the opportunity as a first-time CEO, and I think you'll always remember and thank someone that backed you in on that. And I'm not going to lie, for females in male sporting environments, it is harder to get these roles. So the fact he backed me in and he's given me the opportunity, I'll always say that he's been a great influence on my life. And I think you have different influences at different stages of your life and your career, and people that you really remember that backed you in. And one of those people for me was Craig Bellamy, who next weekend will play yet another grand final for the Melbourne Storm. I've lost count of how many they've played.
It's 11 in 20 years.
11 in 20 years. Well, that's quite an incredible record. But he was someone that backed me in when I was quite young and given an opportunity to step into the executive at the Melbourne Storm. And he said, offered his mentorship to me along the way. So that's always meant a lot to me. And I've also had some great influential women that have worked with me as well. And one that springs to mind is Dorothy Hisgrove. She was a senior female on the executive of the AFL some time ago when I was there. She really looked out for me. She backed me in and offered me a lot of advice. And someone that I've admired from afar and got to spend some time with last week is Caroline Wilson. And I think that, people have a lot to say about Caroline, but, when you're a female trying to make it in these heavily male-dominated environments, I have nothing but respect for the job she's done, and the fact that it doesn't matter what criticism she gets, she's always happy to be her true self, and I think that that's amazing.
We often talk about at the JackJumpers, what is your why? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes you do what you do each and every day? What is your why, Christine Finnegan?
Well, Caitlin, I'd have to say it's people. I love people, and I love being around people, and I love seeing people grow. I get a personal satisfaction from seeing people develop, whether that's my 22-year-old son or whether that's some of the people that I have around me, people including yourself that I've seen go through journeys and see what you've achieved, and incredibly proud of that, and incredibly proud of what you do. So I guess it fills my cup when I see people doing great things, and without putting too much of a bias on the table, especially young women. And I think that women don't raise each other up enough. And my job, I think, is to raise everybody in my team up, but particularly provide support to young women trying to emerge through the sporting environment. And I spend time doing that, and I really love doing that.
That wraps up our starting five, but I always have a few more questions. What have you learned along the way? 25 years in sport as a woman, as you say, is a challenging and very rewarding feat. But what's the journey taught you, and what have been your greatest lessons?
I think my greatest lessons have been to listen more. There was a stage when I thought I needed to have all the answers, but I've actually realised, and this was a piece of advice I got from Craig Bellamy, is put good people around you. And be prepared to listen to them. And I'm not a subject matter expert at everything. I can't possibly be. We have 5 pillars that make our club successful, and I put 5 experts around me, and I should be prepared, given that I've given them their roles to be the subject matter experts, be prepared to take advice from them. It's something that I've had to evolve into and listen to over time, but I think that's probably been the most valuable piece of advice and my greatest learning along the way. And the second piece of advice is that sometimes you can feel really intimidated about the tables you sit at, especially about some of the people that you sit at those tables. And I would say you've earned your place there. So instead of leaning away from them, lean into them, because you're obviously there for a reason. So the other piece of advice is to back yourself in. You
have talked previously about your personal board table, and I'm leading from your question of the tables that you sit at, but tell us a little bit about your philosophy around that, your personal board table and your personal support systems.
Yeah, well, that's very, very important. As you get into more senior roles, I've found they get lonelier and lonelier, and you go home and you carry a lot of the load when you go home, and I think you've got less ability to unload on the people around you at work because you're technically their boss. So you've got to really rely on those people around you that you trust and that know you very well, and your personal board table is made up of those people, but they can't always be the people that are going to tell you what you want to hear as well. So I make sure that the people that I lean into are those that I know that are going to give me honest feedback. And you know this as well as anyone, KB, feedback's a gift, and I truly believe that. And so there's no point in actually putting people around you that are going to tell you you're great, you're doing everything right. You actually need people that are going to say, I really like what you're doing here, but perhaps you could think about what you're doing there. And I have to give kudos to my 22-year-old son there. He's never backed away from being able to say, hey, Mum, I think that you might need to do a bit of this or a bit of that. And I think that listening to young people and what they've got to say can be very valuable as well.
We are, of course, here thanks to St.Lukes, and they are making Tasmania the healthiest island on the planet. You've been through some recent health challenges. Divulge what you would wish, but tell us about what that journey looked like and what it taught you as well.
Yeah, look, I mean, I've been quite public about the fact I've been an endometriosis sufferer all my life, and I've had terrible battles with endometriosis, and including in the fertility stage when I was trying to have children. I was blessed with a child, but some people that suffer endo don't actually get that same blessing. So it's something that's very close to my heart, and my heart bleeds for those that haven't had the opportunity and the success that I had in that space. But endo has led me to some problems later in life, and I've finally dealt with that recently. And I must say that it's hard at times to get out of bed as a female leader when you are dealing with a lot of things behind the scenes. And what I've learnt is that keeping them to yourself proves nothing and does nothing. And so having recently had a hysterectomy which caused ongoing problems for me, I think it's time to speak up about that. And one of the reasons that I love this partnership with St.Lukes, and one of the reasons I approached St.Lukes in the first place was that they want to put women's health issues at the forefront of our relationship with WNBL. And as I said, having suffered my own, I think it's time for us women to speak out and to seek support and to seek education and to help others that might be in your situation. And St.Lukes are all about that, and that's what we're going to do through our WNBL partnership.
It was obviously incredibly challenging physically, but what about mentally and what helped you to get through that?
Yeah, look, I've got to say, I've had a tough mental journey, especially over the last 2 years when I haven't been feeling my optimum. I've been, all women, we go through these issues. We've got self-image issues. We've got all of those going on. And I found myself going through all of them and having to do that in quite a public position, and often seeing yourself in front of a camera and knowing that you're looking tired or fatigued, or you're not happy with how you're turning up, and that plays into your self-criticism then. So I had all of that going on for myself while trying to lead a club, and I guess, what I did was I prioritised everything and everyone else except myself, and I got myself to a point where I was that exhausted that I just felt I couldn't put off what the inevitable was going to be. And so I decided to deal with it. I had some wonderful people around me, and Dr. Hannah Chapman, who does enormous work in women's health in this state, and I congratulate her for the work she's doing. And then I had Dr. Kirsten Connon, who looked after me, and these two women are doing amazing things for girls in Tasmania. And I think, what I learnt from that journey is that if you don't prioritise yourself, no one else is going to do that for you. And one health issue can lead to another. And a simple operation to me turned into 6 weeks on and off in hospital due to the fact I was exhausted and my immune system was down. So, big lesson in that for me, big lesson in that for women. Listen to your bodies and make sure you do something when it's giving you all the signs to do something.
What's one thing that you do, habit or ritual, that makes you feel your healthiest?
Well, I think you know this. I love walking. I'm an avid walker. I either put the headphones in or I make all my phone calls, but I'll walk to work. I've got a lovely central location where I live, and I've done that purposely because I barely have to get in my car. And one thing that the Tassie lifestyle's really suited is my love of that. And it is a little bit about exercise, and certainly, but I believe in a healthy mind, healthy body, and just that time to myself to be able to clear my head, get some fresh air before the long day starts is really important to me. So exercise plays a huge role in that.
What about food? What's one recipe or food that always makes you feel good, both physically and emotionally?
Yeah, I must say, I'm a pretty basic eater. It'll horrify a few people. I do like a bit of red meat in my diet and all of that, but I'm not a big pasta eater, but big into salads and soups and quite healthy living. I'm quite a clean eater. Like everybody, I like a bit of cheese and biscuits, and I lapse from time. I'm not a sweet eater. I'm more on the savoury side, so if I lapse, that's the side I'll go to. But generally just like to have, 3 balanced meals a day and really, really make sure that I'm not overdoing anything. And at my stage of life, you actually don't get away with it. So you've got to be pretty keen on the calories and making sure you balance that off with exercise.
Is there a Christine Finnegan recipe? I've had a couple of them. I know there's a poached chicken, there's a chili con carne. What's your sort of go-to for either comfort food or when you have guests over?
Oh, well, anyone that knows me knows I love a Sunday roast. So the Sunday roast is where I'm at, and a bit of roast chicken never goes astray.
Yeah. We know connection is really important to our overall well-being. How do you bring connection to life?
Oh, I think it's through conversation. It's actually through people. I'm generally a person that'll pick up the phone. I obviously, we do a lot of work through text and all the same, but I think if I really want to have a good, relationship or conversation with someone, I'm talking to them on the phone. I think what I love about Tasmania, besides all the other things I've said I love, is the deep connections that you can form here. And I think because it's still a very face-to-face place, and I go back to Melbourne and it feels quite impersonal. A lot of people working from home, not having that day-to-day contact with each other, whereas for me, human contact is incredibly important. So, a lot of face-to-face meetings are still important to me. I think my favourite form of connection is our game day. I talk a lot about the sense of belonging, but when you see our game day and the sense of belonging it creates, I think for me that's the ultimate connection.
Imagine how a change of outlook can change your outcome. St.Lukes are working towards making Tasmania the healthiest island on the planet. To find out more, head to stlukes.com.au. Christine, we have reached the final buzzer already. It's gone incredibly quickly, and thank you for your insights. But we've got just some quick fire questions to get to know you a little bit more on the surface and also a little bit deeper. So let's start. What's your coffee order?
Lactose-free latte.
Your favourite childhood TV show?
I'm really giving away my age, but you already did that at the introduction. So the Brady Bunch.
Favourite character from the Brady Bunch?
Cindy. Loved her. Loved her.
What was your first car?
Ford Laser. Giving away my age again.
Romping around Canberra. Most interesting person you've met along the way?
Oh my goodness, I've met so many interesting people along the way. I think I'm going to give a shout out to our coach, Scott Roth, there, because I think that people will say he's interesting, but I've got to know him in a very different way to everyone else over the last 5 years, and I'd say he's probably among the most interesting people I've ever met.
Favourite JackJumpers jersey ever?
Gee, this is a good question. We've bought out a few, KB.
It's been about 30, I think we're up to.
I would have to say the original She jersey would be my favourite. Everybody knows that I sit on the board of She. I'm actually very engaged with what we do with the She Foundation. So when we brought out that original jersey, and actually Joe was there, it was incredibly special, I think, to bring that to life and the feeling it had behind it. And sport is about that. We're storytellers and we're able to amplify things on our platform. So that was probably go down as my most special.
I just got cold shivers thinking about, I think it was year 2, we did the teal jersey, teal polos for everyone, and we won that game. Very dramatically, and it was a beautiful emotional moment for a lot of people with Joe and Scott there as well. What's your star sign?
Taurus. I'm a bull.
I was about to say, what's a Taurus? Tell us about your personality, or what is it?
Well, the thing I know about bulls, they're very loyal, but they expect loyalty back, and it's a great thing when you're giving it, but then sometimes you can overplay that when you expect it back. So I think I've had to learn that all your Taurian traits need to be a little bit levelled out from time to time.
What is your favourite phone app?
Oh, that's a hard one.
You got many.
I've got many. Look, let's go with my age, Facebook.
I thought you were going to say LinkedIn. What are you reading, watching, or listening to at the moment?
I'm a podcast. I love podcasts. I can't get enough of them. I hate to say I'm a true crime girl, so I listen to a lot of that. The latest podcast that I'd listened to in the full series was one called Dear Rochelle, and it was a fantastic cold case in Australia, and the investigative journalist that did it was incredible, the way she told the story. It'd be remiss of me not to say I didn't follow one of those 47 podcasts that came out about the mushroom cook as well, so I did follow that one too.
Which JackJumpers staff or player or anyone in between, maybe a commercial partner in your case, would be on your most recent or most frequent call list?
It's a good question, actually. I'd have to say UKB cop it a bit. You and I have a bit to talk about from time to time when things may or may not go public. So I'd have to say you. I'd say Steve Old cops a few questions. He cops a few calls and texts. And I'd say Rob Miller's amongst them as well from SRT. Rob and I have become friends, and he plays a little bit of a mentor role for me too. So there's a lot of people on my call list, but probably you'd be amongst my top 3.
A privilege, I think. Last one, and we've already touched on it quite a bit, but what's one thing you do to stay healthy?
Well, walk, exercise, eat healthy. I don't think there is one thing. I think it's a culmination of all the things that you do, but it's also the most recent thing, and I'll go back to it, is that I addressed how I was feeling, and I was addressing the symptoms that I was living with, and I think that that's the healthiest and the best thing I've ever done.
You feeling better for it?
I feel amazing for it. I don't think I've felt this well in years, and I think the energy that I now have, and that's going to be a downside for all of you at work, that I've got more energy than I've ever had. But yeah, it certainly feels so much better, and great lesson learnt by me.
Christine Finnegan, thank you so much for being the first guest on our Season 2 of Vitamins presented by St.Lukes. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you further and unpack some of the things that we don't always talk about publicly. So thank you for your time and your energy today.
Thanks for having me, KB.
Make sure you follow the JackJumpers across all our social media channels to stay up to date on everything that's happening as we get the NBL 26 season underway. A huge thanks once again to our friends at St. Lukes. Thanks for joining us, and make sure you stay tuned for the next episode.